Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. And actually, it's Wednesday, isn't it? Happy Wednesday. I'm glad you're here. If you don't know who I am, I'm Rita Hickman. I'm a body-mind expert, a Shiatsu massage therapist, and my specialty is helping women who are in narcissistic or toxic situations either get out of them or learn how to stand up or change the relationship for good. So this morning, I was reading a number of different articles which drew my attention. Hey Dina, nice to see you. And Bernice is here too, that's awesome. So there were a number of articles that drew my attention this morning, and the first one that pulled me into it was an article in the New York Times on ghosting. And it talked about why people ghost. Hey Kellyanne. Why people ghost and you know how you can perceive it or look at it so it doesn't knock you on your butt. So if you don't know what ghosting is when you say you're going to be there, when you say you're going to do something, and you just don't respond. You know, it can be in any sort of relationship, casual, like at a coffee shop, and you know you just leave and don't pick up your coffee after paying for it, to romantic relationships, dating relationships, family, where people just don't feel the responsibility to show up and be present to somebody else. That's what's called ghosting. Now, people do ghosting typically because they feel anxious, because they feel uncomfortable, because they feel out of control, and it of course affects the people on the opposite side. You know, the people who are being ghosted. So that led me. Oh, and one of the neat things in this article that I pulled out was about Tylenol. It referenced some research that's been coming out. Hey, Carrie, that when we take acetaminophen, which is in Tylenol, the active ingredient, it actually blunts our sensitivity to both negative things and positive things. But, you know, when you're in a difficult situation, let's say somebody is a narcissist and they ghosted you and you have all of that stuff triggered, then acetaminophen, taking some Tylenol, will help you not feel so out of control, because that's really one of the biggest problems when people behave towards other people in a narcissistic way, is the emotional and physical side effects that we have from that. Now, that led me to another article from one of my favorite brain doctors called Dr. Amen, and the article was about personality disorders. It was about borderline personality disorder, actually. Hey, Allison. And so when talking about borderline personality disorder, they described, you know, mood swings, they described high levels of anger, distrust, paranoia, you know, all the things that tend to show up in narcissism. You know, it gets you thinking about mental health, and mental health from a whole spectrum of challenges and issues that people have. And one of the challenges is borderline personality disorder, where they have a very difficult time managing their mood. It's similar to bipolar, but has different causes, so it has different medications or treatments for it. So when we look at relationships, all the stuff that I'm seeing out there is about vilifying people who have mental health issues, because they don't know they have mental health issues, and you don't know they have mental health issues. Maybe you haven't figured it out. Hey, Kimberly. And so this person that we're in engagement with or a relationship with is struggling with something that we might be completely unaware of. And we've all been on that spectrum. You know, narcissism at its core is when we behave in a way that's about self-preservation, that's about survival. And one of the rules of thumb in the healing field is that people who have been victims tend to be the biggest victimizers. And they do that because they're so wounded that they come from a place of pain. They come from a place of struggling with mental health. And so they behave in a very abusive, emotional, ghosting, gaslighting, hey Gretchen, manipulative, toxic sort of way, because they feel so on edge and so out of control. So I'd like us to look at narcissism in a little bit different way. in a way of a spectrum. We all behave in narcissistic sorts of ways. And as the recipient, I've been the recipient, as most of you have, to people behaving in a very negative, toxic, self-absorbed, maybe ghosting, maybe manipulation, maybe gaslighting sort of way. We've had it in our families and friends and workplaces. Nobody can escape. But it's on different levels, isn't it? Some people are way over to the right, and so it's described as a personality disorder, as in you are a narcissist. You have enough of these qualities that you fall into this compartment. But everybody else ends up having moments, longer or shorter, of narcissistic, toxic behavior, no matter how hard we try, because we can't be totally aware of what the other person is going through. So the suggestions that Dr. Amen gave, if you're in a relationship with someone who has borderline personality disorder, which is, one of the mental health, one of the main reasons, a big reason why people will behave in a narcissistic way, is because their mental or physical health is impaired in some way, is to come at the situation with compassion. Compassion for the other person and compassion for yourself. And when you do that, it gives you permission to start to take steps, start to do things which will help you find a good balance and can actually transform the relationship. One of the suggestions was don't walk on eggshells. Tell people exactly what you feel and what you're thinking. Maybe do it in a tactful, kind way. But don't suppress all of that, because then it just makes the whole situation and the whole thing worse. Most people with mental health issues, and a lot of us have them, it's an ebb and a flow. And when they're ramping up and struggling with their mood and paranoia or narcissism, that's where they're at. But if you give it a little bit of time, then there's this lull and they come back, because that's the yin and yang. That's the back and the forth, the good and the bad. Of here we've got this dramatic emotion, and then now we come down from it. So if you've got a narcissist in your life, and you aren't ready to get rid of them, because most people don't have the luxury to just leave their job or leave their spouse or leave their kid or cut off their mother or their father. They don't have the luxury to do that. So instead you have to live with it. So first of all, you kind of look at where they are on the narcissism spectrum. Start studying and looking at their patterns. Are they more likely to be volatile, let's say, when the weather's bad, when your energy is off, when you're not in a good space? Are they picking up on that and that's triggering you? Look for the patterns, look for the things that can contribute to the ebb and the flow and the mood swings. Now, you're not going to get all of them. You're only going to get some of them. But it'll start to give you a sense of power and control. And then what you can do is, if you're feeling something, if they're ghosting you or gaslighting you or making you feel crazy or disrupting you in some way, start taking the things that will help. As I said, in this cool article in the New York Times, they said Tylenol will help because it blunts your sensitivity to stimuli that's around you, so you don't feel it as much. That's one of the biggest problems with staying present and taking a challenging relationship into a positive direction, is because our own feelings, our own self are hijacked by the other person's energy, the other person's behavior. And when we can start to take back our control and keep ourselves from being hijacked by doing things like chamomile tea, taking Tylenol, taking neurotransmitters, doing healthy things, it gives us the ability to not be so reactionary. Now, why is this good? Because I was lucky enough that for whatever reason, I have what's called a growth mindset. And it's probably because I know too much about the body and I know too much about the mind. I know that we're always evolving and learning and growing. My first career was a teacher. Teachers run in my family. And it's about how do we grow as people? How do we learn? And we're always learning. We're always changing. Every 7 years, every single particle in our body has been changed over. Our DNA is constantly being switched on and switched off. When we get the things that we need, our bodies and minds are in optimal health, and when we don't, then we struggle. So start looking at and realizing that the body and the mind have the ability to grow. And if you have to be in a relationship with somebody, or you choose to be in a relationship with somebody, if you believe in the idea that they have the ability to grow, that things can change, that you can have an impact on the situation, even though it may take longer than you want, it starts giving you permission to do tools. It gives you that little bit of objectivity, so you're not being hijacked and you're like, okay, today I'm going to take my Tylenol, and I'm going to take my CBD oil, and maybe I'll take a little bit of Xanax if I need to. Hey, Michelle, do what you need to do so that you can stay level and speak to someone's emotion. Speak to what's going on, and not necessarily speak to the words they're using or the behavior that they're giving. Speak to what's underneath. And the only way we're able to do that and stay balanced and stable is to do things which keep us balanced and stable. It's not all about having this amazing spiritual practice. Because for me, it's been tough because I'm a very physical person. So I feel things very physically, and my body will hijack me. So even if I know better, even if I know a situation is fine, my body and nervous system will still lock down in fear. It will still lock down from that stimuli, and so if I'm compassionate to the other person and compassionate to myself, then it means that I will give myself the tools that I need so I can stay grounded and present, and I can guide the relationship in the direction I want it to go, not based on the person who is struggling or being challenged. Eva Petrarcas is a philosopher from the 1950s. And she would talk about the person who is more evolved in a relationship has the responsibility to guide the relationship. And that's exactly it. If you're going to be in connection with someone, you can no longer be the victim. You can no longer have the luxury of letting yourself be victimized. It's important to realize you have a lot of power. And the power that you have is over yourself and over how you feel. And when you can change how you feel, it changes how you respond. And when you change how you respond, it changes the direction of the relationship. You're allowed to allow someone to go through the shifts and changes that they need to and find their balance again, and help them stay as balanced as possible. You have that ability when you feel good, when you do the things about self-care and nourishment, which will help you stay as grounded as possible, because it's so normal. When we're struggling and we're in our own heads, we come up with all sorts of stories. It's normal because we're based on trying to survive. We're based on trying to protect ourselves in some way. And the way we do that is by thinking about all the things that can go wrong and all the things that we need to be anxious about. It's important to put the tools in your life that help you not physically feel so anxious and out of control. And when you do that, whether it's massage, whether it's energy work, whether it's coaching, whether it's counseling, whether it's Tylenol, whether it's juicing, whether it's CBD oil, whether it's Xanax, whatever it may be, you need to do the thing that helps breaks that pain cycle and helps you make good choices that keep you on a good path. Because if you're going to be in a relationship, and many of us are, you have to take that step forward and empower yourself and realize there are things that you can do and that you should do. And that if you don't want the relationship to continue to be manipulated and driven by someone who is struggling with something, then you have to be the one that feels balanced. You have to be the one in your rational mind so that you can allow the natural ebb and flow of a person, whether they have borderline personality disorder or whether they're just anxious or they're healing from trauma or they're super stressed out and have bad relationship skills, or they're all the way to the side of they are full-blown, qualified, diagnosed narcissist with no desire to change. So you get to take your power back. Narcissism is on a wide variety of levels, and if you're in a relationship with someone like that, it's important to take care of yourself first, because people heal, people change, and the people that you're in a relationship with might not believe that. They may think that things are destined, or that there's, and that's called a fixed mindset. Hey, Brenda, it's a mindset that says nothing's going to change, so it's either going to work out or it's not going to work out. Whereas a growth mindset is when you put the time and effort and you look at things and come up with solutions that you can shape and guide a relationship in the mind, in the body. You can shape and guide all of those things over time, given that period of time. So change your mindset, realize that you have a lot more power than you do, that things can change with your influence. Start doing the things that will help you feel better so that you can influence the situation, so you're not letting the person who's struggling or toxic guide the energy, drive the bus, okay? And have patience and understanding. And sometimes that patience and understanding means that you give yourself some space. You say, you know what, while you're like this, while you're in this space, you need to be over there and I'm going to be over here. This is just the way that it is until you are ready. Have compassion for yourself and the whole situation. It just takes one more stressor off of all of it. Because many people who are struggling, who are toxic, who are negative, who have mental health disorders, they look like they've got it all going for them, like they're in control of the world. But what's underneath it is this serious felt sense of discomfort, of helplessness, of anger and negativity and shame. That's what's underneath most of it. Now, you don't have to decide to stay with it. You don't have to decide that this is the experience you want in your life. You absolutely have the choice. But since narcissistic behavior is becoming more the norm than it's ever been before, if you decide you don't want anyone to treat you any way ever, you're in for a big surprise because you can't avoid it. And the faster you learn how to take back your power and take control of a situation, take control of a relationship, the faster you figure out how to do that, the more comfortable you will be in the long term. Because you're not going to be able to avoid narcissistic people or narcissistic behavior or people being self-absorbed or ghosting or toxic or gaslighting or any of it. You're not going to be able to avoid it. And because you can't avoid it, you need to learn how it works and how to manage yourself when it happens. Now, it's a bit of a struggle, but if you try to do it alone, you're just going to end up wasting so much of your life and stuck. But when you start getting help, when you start finding out the answers, how to manage how you feel, then you'll be able to create the life that you're looking for and the relationships, whether it's with the person, who is toxic and has narcissistic behavior or whether it's not. Okay? Cool. So here's your homework assignment for today. I want you to take some Tylenol. I want you to take some Tylenol and pay attention to how it makes you feel. Does it make you more or less sensitive to things? Does it give you a little bit of a bubble wrap around you so you're not as reactionary to stuff that goes on? Notice it and see what happens. Take back some of that power. So I want you to give it a shot, okay? And then let me know how it turns out. Now, if you do feel stuck, because this journey, it's worth it, but it's hard to do alone. I do coaching programs, and then I also have my live streams like now. And tonight we've got a narcissism expert series, and we're going to be talking with my friend Patty Mason, who's a CBD oil expert and self-defense expert. And we're going to be talking about how having narcissistic people in our life, especially if we're choosing to have them in their life because of the situation we're in, can help you grow and become more peaceful and become more centered and make the rest of your life even better than you ever thought. Hey, Kim. So that's tonight, 7:30 p.m. right here. Just show up. No big deal. It's a live stream. And it'll go for about an hour and a half. It's a general, easygoing conversation with two healers who have a lot of experience in dealing with people who are struggling.